How we doing, guys? I'm going to show you how I made my new track free. It's out now on Andrew Rael's Find Your Harmony. If you haven't listened yet, go ahead and check the link in my bio on Instagram, YouTube, all my socials. Let's get right into it. All right, so here's the project file on this thing. A little bit of background. It's out now on Andrew Rael's Find Your Harmony. I think I started this song like at least 2 years ago now. My Instagram post when I first started it. It started out as like a very main stage progressive house track, kind of like old 2013, 2015 style progressive house. Decided I want to do something a little bit more modern. And by doing that, I made like these different kind of leads and like more tech housey drums in the drop. I'll get more into it, but that is how I kind of want to separate this from being a little bit different than older style progressive house. I think this might be one of my favorite tracks I've ever made. Progressive house is by far my favorite genre of all time, and I've always been kind of a perfectionist about when I make progressive house. I want it to be as good as possible because I take so much pride in the genre. And I've got a couple in the past, the one Dreaming with Waxel, I Need You, which I'm not super crazy about that one, how that one turned out, but I'm also in a part of my career where I'm progressing every year. I was really happy with how this one turned out. So to have a progressive house track and have it turn out how I wanted it to turn out, it made me very happy. So really happy with the outcome of this one. So let's start out with these drop leads, because this is probably the part that people said they liked the most as far as the melody and just the uniqueness of it. This was probably the part that I messed around with the most on this track. The leads that I had before, they just sounded like another progressive house track. I showed them to a few other producers, and they were like, really cool, but sounds like this, sounds like this, sounds like this. And I don't want that. I want stuff that stands out. So I probably went through 500 different sounds of just messing around until I got something that I liked. Eventually, I settled on this. And I think this might not even be the final version. These leads feel a bit more stereo. I think I actually made them more mono in a separate project. These projects are a complete mess. I had like 3 different projects for this, but this is the most organized project I have. So here's one of the leads right here. Sounds like this. So I really only wanted the high frequency of this, track spacer on it. This was so that I could carve out frequency so that the other main lead stood out more. Basically, this layer is dynamically EQ'd to the other one. Really cool plugin here. This is like an emulation of the plugin, but I have the real one now. Definitely a cool plugin for your mixes if you ever want to check it out. So this is the really main sound right here. And this is actually a Nexus ARP preset. Who would have thought you could use a lead melody and have it be an ARP preset, but it sounded really nice. And I thought that was one way to make this track really unique, was to have the main lead actually be an ARP, even though it doesn't really feel like an ARP. So I'm cutting the low end, boosting a little bit around 360 hertz. Says isotope trash, but it is not isotope trash. It is saturation knob. Really nice free plugin. Another layer here. And all I did with that one is I add a little bit of reverb. The reason I did that is I didn't want this to be a layer that stood out a lot in the mix. I wanted to push it a little bit further back. So I added some reverb to it. Then all these layers are routed here, and a lot going on. On this mix chain, I got a little bit of EQ, boosting around 1000, OTT, flash, which I don't really use anymore. I made this project so long ago, but it's basically just a transient shaper. Makes things more punchy. It's got a tremolo on it. Really cool free plugin here. Camel Crusher, probably one of my favorite plugins to add beef to sounds. Maserati. This is a really, really cool plugin. I think I first saw this in like an Audion video, maybe. I don't remember if Audion uses this, but it's actually a guitar plugin, but it adds so much to sounds. I'll A/B it with and without. So this is without it. And then this is with it. If you're wearing nice headphones, you'll definitely be able to tell the difference there. So then a bit more EQing here, boosting around here, boosting the sides of the high frequencies. I think I actually pulled that out later on. I made the leads a lot more mono. They did not sit well in the mix being so stereo. And if you got a big club system and some of the parts that are important are super stereo and wide, it's not going to sound good. And then a little bit of soothe to tame some of the harsh frequencies. That's routed to another channel where I have kickstart 85%, soothe, cleaning out a little bit more of the harsh sounds, endless smile for automating certain parts, and then cutting out the low end. Finally, that is routed to another channel where I did make it more mono again here. Reverb, this is basically a send, a reverb send, Valhalla room. And then these are just for automating. But then on top of that, I also have this drop white noise lead layer. I use this in like every single one of my songs. It's a great way to add transient to sounds. Yeah, I just like layering stuff with white noise. I've got some nice drop chord layers here. And that actually consists of 3 layers: Silent 1, Serum, and Nexus. Also some pads in the background. That's got 3 Nexus layers. Ambient pad, a choir, then this is some kind of a gate. Yeah, voice flute with a gate on it. A drop piano. I'm guessing that's either true piano or Nexus. Okay, it's both. It's true piano and Nexus. And then on that, I have OTT, some EQ, more EQ, making it more wide. A plugin that I don't use anymore, and then some more EQ. And here's the kick drum. And on that thing, I have Cashmere Essential Kick. Really cool plugin. Free, it used to be free. I don't know if it is anymore, but I just messed with these settings to shape it how I wanted to shape it. And this was a big part here with the drums that I think made this track a little bit different than your basic progressive house track. A lot of drums going on, which is not typical of some of the older progressive house that you think of. I've got hats. Some snaps. Some snares. And then some more hats come in the second half of the drop. Some more claps. And then some more snares. So all together, the drums sound like this. And these are all routed to a drum bus where I squeeze them together with a compressor and then just remove the low end. Here's the sub. I'm not going to tell you about the sub. It's probably just a sine wave. And then the mid bass here. A lot going on with this mid bass. There's multiple layers. I usually don't use this many mid bass layers, but for some reason in this song I did. I got this one here, which I used to use Kickstart 1. Now I have Kickstart 2, so I got to disengage that or else it wouldn't work. Here's the first one. Second one. That one's real filthy. Another one. Kind of like a slap house bass. Then the last one. So all together they sound like this. I don't love how these all sound together now. I'm guessing the engineer really helped make them sit in the track much better. Feels very weird listening back to them at this point. On that, I process each layer a little bit separately. One has trash and OTT. And then on the bus, I have some compression, some EQ, some more trash, sausage fattener, EQ cutting out the low end. This Ozone 9 Elements where I EQ'd up to 128. So it looks like I brick walled up to 128 frequencies. There's a lot of things that you'll find as producers today that you think you look back at your projects and you're like, why did I do this? Like for this, I brick walled 128 frequencies. There's no reason I should have done that. I would have sloped this off much differently. I also wouldn't have used Ozone equalizer. Probably would have done more like 100 hertz. So yeah, here's something that I did in an old project, which I would not do nowadays. Does not make sense, but I did it here. And then I used Ozone Imager, made it a little bit more mono. Then in the background, I got some ambience and white noise. Thought there was ambience. There's not ambience. Just white noise and down filters. And that is it for the drop. I know it doesn't look like there's too much going on here, but of course when you dive into each pattern, there's a lot going on, especially with the leads, the chords, the bass. Yeah, it took me a lot of messing around to get this one exactly how I want it to sound. So let's talk about the break here. I'll play that back if you haven't heard it yet.
I'm free. I'm free. I'm free. I'm free. I'm free. I'm free.
So let's talk about this vocal. So this vocal is actually made up of two different samples from Splice. It's this one, and then this one. Of course, using vocal samples from Splice can be really hard due to how many of them are overused or how many of them just don't fit well in your track. But I think you should really think out of the box with vocals. In this case, I used two separate vocals from Splice. I didn't just throw in one top line and say, yeah, that works. No, I used one phrase from one sample and another phrase from another sample and pieced them together because the voice sounded a bit similar. So I think as producers, when we're hunting for vocal samples and trying to get them to fit into our songs, I think we should really think out of the box and try to piece together different stuff, add different effects. Don't just plop in one vocal sample, one top line, and think that that's going to work, because a lot of times it really doesn't. So here's the one sample. And then the processing on this was really cool. So I pitched it up one semitone. It's got a little bit of OTT, some EQ boosting this area, trash to make it a little bit more warm, more EQ, a little bit of reverb, and then this delay I think is what completely makes this vocal, and I love this delay. It has a ton of mix and a ton of feedback, and I think it just totally brings this break to life. If the delay were not on it, it would sound like this. So it's got a nice reverb to it, but still the delay adds so much, fills in so much space. So that is it for the vocal. The other big part of the breakdown, I would say, is this break pluck, which I absolutely love this sound. Trying to figure out how to repurpose this sound into a different track, because I love how it sounds. I think it sits so nice. Sounds like this. And then the cutoff and the hold is constantly changing, as well as Endless Smile. So it's just constantly evolving, which is really cool. And all it was one layer. It's one serum layer. I think I got this preset from an Incognite. Yeah, I think it's from an Incognite pack. They have really nice sounds. Then on that sound, EQ. Don't be afraid to have weird EQ shapes sometimes. If it works, then it works. Another EQ boosting a lot of the high end there. Echo Boy delay. Also some Fruity Panomatic, which is weird that I had Echo Boy and a Panomatic on it. And then the automation stuff. And then we got some chords here. I think those are the same pads that are in the drop. Also this organ layer. Organ layer is a Spire preset in the keys section. I really like that organ. And then I introduced the melody here about 8 bars in with a different sound. I don't use the leads that are coming in the drop to introduce the melody. I have a different patch in the breakdown. And that sound is just a Spire preset. And then the leads do come into the breakdown, but not till the very end. They're coming in a little bit here, but you can't really hear them because of these volume automations. As well as this filter automation. So I think it's good to tease your leads in the breakdown, but don't fully bring them in until that drop hits. So it adds so much more impact. Also have an ARP layer, a kick to kind of just like a chest thump kick, some more drums, bunch of drum layers, and then a bunch of risers, downers, and impacts in the background. I went pretty overboard on this track. Recently, what I've been doing is I've been exporting the stems of songs that I make, and then I reuse them in new songs. So it's really nice to export all the stems from tracks and then reuse those, like those impacts or your kick drum or the hi-hats you use in a different song, and keep them all in one folder. And that way you can just drag them all right into your new project, and it makes your workflow so much easier. Also have this ambience layer. The old Garrick's clock. This was in a lot of songs for a while. And then this weird atmosphere. You can barely hear it. It's cool adding a lot of things in tracks like this that you can barely hear, but actually add a lot of substance to the track. And then for the build up, for the snares, I use the same snares that we used in Dreaming. And then I used a couple other risers. Also have a sub here in the breakdown. And the last thing I have here are these strings, because strings make everything better. Strings add so much emotion. Not sure what plugin I use for this one. I just use Flex for this one. I usually use Contact now. Guessing all I had was Flex at that time. So that is it for the first breakdown and the first drop. All right, let's talk about the second breakdown. It's pretty similar to the first breakdown. The only difference is I have this break 2 piano that comes in. And I think the chords also switch up a tiny bit. Maybe just some inversions and some added notes, but it sounds like this. Man, I love that piano. Another sound, as you go back and listen through projects, it's like, damn, I need to reuse this piano the way it sounds. It's so nice. So that piano, all it was a Labs piano, and it actually had no processing on it. Sometimes sounds are great right out of the box. Nothing's needed on them. And that's really it with the second break. There's nothing that's really too different than the first breakdown. I do have this little synth fill. So that was something I tried to add some variation compared to the first drop. And then the other difference about the second drop, so it's kind of funny actually, I see third party here. I actually had, I like to write songs using the acapella of a different song, and I write the song around that acapella. I just find it much easier. And I remember for this song, I used a third party track, Nation, Rise Again. I used that track to write this song, and then I used like part of the vocal, like this really long part of the vocal in the drop, and I realized I can't do that, you know, obviously with like copyright and things. That's not a good idea, not a good situation to get yourself into, and it's just not original. So once I made the final version, I pulled that out and then I added in my own vocal effect, and you'll hear this vocal stutter right here. I think I did it in a separate project, but you can hear it within the track, the drop. So that is one of the differences with the second drop. And then the other thing is this string that I added in. And the other thing that's also in the first drop, I forgot to mention it, are these drum fills. Really not much to it. It's just a layer of 4 different fills that I think sounded good together, and then a different one at the very end. So I hope this is helpful. I know this is a long video, probably one of my bigger tracks, 126 total tracks within the project file, which is pretty big. It had to do with a lot of me just going back and forth with stuff though. But it's very helpful for me to go back through these projects that I haven't visited in quite a while and see what sounds I used, how I approach things, and see how I evolved as an artist. Because there's a lot of things here that I'm noticing that I don't do anymore, and that's kind of proof to me that I've changed and I've evolved. But I'm also hearing things that I liked that I did and that I'd like to incorporate again into the future. So stay tuned for another tutorial soon. I've got more music coming at the end of the year. Definitely will be making more tutorial videos for those songs. So hopefully this is helpful. Talk to you soon.